Hello friends, good evening. So today we will be having the chapter relating to the area called as political theory. So in this many chapters are there which are highly relevant from prelims as well as the mains perspective. Let us have a detailed summary of all those area one by one to have a brief knowledge on how this chapter as such starts and what are the area this chapter is going to help us in this examination. We will have a brief idea in these perspective. So generally speaking, this NCERT will give you a few concepts which can be applied in case of the mains exam question, and this particular NCERT is also helping us to know many areas which are unknown to a larger extent. So we can come to a great clarity that this particular chapter or these chapters all put together is going to help us to streamline the answer writing in the mains exam. With this small intro, let's begin the chapter. To start with, I'll go with the core areas initially, and that is called as chapter number 3, equality. Right? So what is equality? Why we have a big amount of cry for equality, and what are the issues relating to equality? We will deal that one by one. And to start with this area, let's assume our chapter on equality. Okay. So first chapter on this equality, how it goes and how the equality is being defined as such. For this reason, please understand, equality is a powerful moral and political ideal that has inspired and guided human society for many centuries. So first thing, what is that? No one likes to be treated in a different way. Every one of them has a feel that we need to be treated with utmost respect and care, and for that this equality is coming as a great amount of solution for all the demand what people have in this particular arena. And generally speaking, it is implicit that in all faith and religion which proclaim all human beings to be created by God. So all godly creation, everything is being done by God. Therefore, no one feels to be treated in a different perspective which cannot be subjected to acceptance. As a political ideal, the concept of equality invokes the idea that all human beings have an equal worth regardless of their color, gender, race or nationality. It maintains that human beings deserve equal consideration and respect because of their common humanity. Every human being is deserving some amount of equal respect. You can't disrespect them just because they belong to this or that community, just because they are subjected to this or that gender or race as such. Every one of them are bound to have this equality, and that is a very basic thing from which our particular chapter is kickstarting. And here we need to go to the history to understand from where the equality has kickstarted. How equality is there and how to understand the essence of equality. Let's begin one by one in this area. So to start in this particular chapter, please understand that equality, how it is getting kickstarted. First thing, in case of French Revolution, 1789 French Revolution. I hope you are having some idea on French Revolution. French was ruled by Bourbon dynasty for more than 200 years, and these people exploited the third estate. So first estate, second estate used to enjoy the merit. Third estate or the commoners, and these people were being ignored in each and every aspect. Therefore, they felt very bad to be residing in this country called as France. After some point of time, when revolution erupted, people started to greatly oppose the element of this inequality what prevailed. So these people who are considered to be a great amount of supremacy in first and second estate were subjected to a great authoritarian power where they greatly involved in suppressing the third estate people. So nobles of sword, nobles of robe, all elite classes, they created a rule of oppression upon the weaker section. Therefore, to avoid all these things, right now we have a phenomena wherein which the concept like liberty, equality, fraternity, all those things emerge against the feudal aristocracy. That means group of few people who are ruling the French society with utmost authority without having any amount of question. Right? Aristocracy denotes some group of people, elite section, they alone will decide everything. No great amount of people consultation. That is how France was there, and here it was against the monarchical system. Monarchy was suppressed. Monarchy was subjected to great amount of opposition by the third estate. Therefore, equality created a great amount of presence and demand in France society. And this demand for equality also raised the struggle of anti-colonial liberation struggles in Asia and Africa during the 20th century. When one country is able to do, why can't we do that? That is the biggest question what is there into the minds of people. Therefore, it resulted in emergence of this equality to a large extent. And generally speaking, today equality is being accepted as the embodiment in the constitution, and that is the reason many constitutions across the world has given the importance for this equality. And now the core area begins. It is inequality rather than equality which is mostly visible around us as well as within our society. Inequality is there everywhere. Rich and poor differences are there always, but equality is something which is not that so visible. So equality is only a perception. It's only a assumption. Rather, the element of equality, what we are thinking, is not happening in reality. Some differences are always there. One is bound to go in a vehicle costing 10 crore. Others are not even able to buy a bicycle. This inequality is prevalent in each and every area. And for that, just see one or two facts, if not everything. They say that the 50 individuals who are there in the world, richest people, and their income is greater than 40 crore people across the world. You see what a difference is there in terms of inequality. 50 crore, 50 individuals income is equal to 40 crore people's income. That shows inequality. And number two, you have an opinion that the poorest 40% of world population receive 5% of global income, whereas richest 10% of world population, they have 54% of the global income. This is what they have as the answer. And number two, the question, the risk of dying from pregnancy related causes is 1 to 18 in Nigeria, but 1 to 8,700 in case of Canada. So what is the difference here? The terms of prosperity, some are doing very good. On the other hand, some are not able to prosper. This indicates that generally speaking, whenever there is an issue on inequality, that needs to be addressed. Otherwise, equality would be put to threat in case of global society. And for that, India is no more an exceptional country. When in India, inequality is emerging to a large extent, that needs to be curbed. If at all they fail to curb it, that will result in great amount of law and order violation. Even it may result in toppling of the government and even change of the regime also completely. Therefore, India is having a paradox. Almost everyone accepts the ideas of equality, yet almost everywhere we encounter inequality. Yes or no? Every one of us wants equality. The ideal of equality has been celebrated, but wherever we go, inequality is prevailing to a largest extent. Inequality is happening each and every area. No area is subjected to any big amount of change. So why this is happening? Why there is a great amount of inequality prevailing despite people subject themselves to the ideal of equality? For that, we need to go by the answer. Simply speaking, all of them make distinction between human beings on the ground of race, color, and these appears to most of us as unacceptable. In fact, such distinctions violate our intuitive understanding of equality, which tells us that all human beings should be entitled to the same respect and consideration because of their common humanity. Everywhere we find discrimination. Even in case of Karnataka, we have seen a small boy of 2 or 3 year old, when he entered inside a temple, the temple was subjected to purification, because they said that, come on, this temple now became ugly and dirty because the boy is from Dalit community. So some area, based on some factors like race, color, caste, in some perspective, these people are being subjected to discrimination. And this discrimination is against the humanity. We are not able to do anything, and largely speaking, India is facing these type of inequality to a very, very large extent. And because of these many factors, we are having a testimonial proof that inequality is prevalent in case of India, not only in the past when British ruled, but also during the current arena. On the other hand, however, treating people with equal respect need not mean always treating them in an identical way. No society treats all its members exactly in the same way under all conditions. The smooth functioning of society requires division of work and function, and people often enjoy different status and reward on account of it. At times, these differences of treatment may appear acceptable or even necessary. An IAS officer in the rank of Chief Secretary, he needs to be given the privilege. A judge of Supreme Court needs to be given the privilege. We can't tell that equality is there. I will treat everyone equally. That will not be applicable here. So please understand how they proceed for the aspects of equality. Sometimes speaking, equality needs to be assured. Equality needs to be maintained. If you fail to do so, then obviously speaking, our nation will be put to threat. But that doesn't mean every time we can have equality. Sometime we can give privileges to people based upon their status. A president of India will be given Rashtrapati Bhavan for his stay and accommodation. A common man cannot ask that I also will go and stay in Rashtrapati Bhavan along with President of India. That is not equality. Equality is you should be given equal opportunity to get empowered. But that doesn't mean privilege wise what we give to a high dignitary can be given to a common man. That is not the notion or the meaning of the term which is called as equality. So do not have any amount of ambiguity in that perspective. And now the question is, why this equality is there and why we are not able to do? For that we get an answer that the commitment to the ideal of equality does not imply elimination of all form of differences. See this point, please be very careful students. This point will definitely help us to score mark in the exam. Equality nowhere conveys the message that we need to give equal treatment to everyone. It is not possible also. At some point or the other, treating everyone equally is not a practical or feasible solution. It is not having any amount of possibility. Synonymously, it merely suggests that treatment we receive and the opportunity we enjoy must not be predetermined by birth or social circumstance. We have a term called as achieved status, ascribed status. Achieved status is something what you gain by way of your hard work and effort. Simply speaking, clearing the civil service exam. On the other hand, ascribed status is what you get just because you are born in a royal family. When you are having the birth in a royal family, you may be subjected to large amount of benefit. That is not been given to you because of any other factor that you are talented, meritorious and all. It has been given only because you are born in a family which is called as a royal family or ruling family. Likewise, equality doesn't mean just simply speaking treating everyone equally, because when you see the word prima facie, the word will convey the message that equality, so all are equal. That notion you need to avoid it, because that is not the answer in this area. Therefore be specific in that perspective. On the other hand, here we convey the message that the opportunities whatever is available, we need to enjoy it on equal perspective. It is not that one can be denied, other can be accessed. I have to be given some opportunity for my career growth, for my empowerment. The moment you guarantee them, that is what equality is. It is not treating everyone equal under all circumstances. Equality of opportunity. The concept of equality implies that all people as human beings are entitled to the same rights and opportunity to develop their skill, talent and to pursue their goals and ambition. Even we can take the very same example of UPSC. They don't discriminate people. Am I right? Men, women. Only discrimination what we find is fees as getting some exemption for the women children. So girls need not pay the fees. It is a positive discrimination. It is being done to empower the weaker section. On the other hand, in terms of prelims, mains, interview, you will not find the mark list for boys and girls separately. It has been given on equal opportunity. Therefore, this is what equality is. When you give them equal opportunity to pursue their demand or dream or career, when that is not having any if and but, that is called as equality, and this needs to be maintained to a large extent. On the other hand, it is not lack of equality of status or wealth or privilege that is significant, but the inequality in people's access to such basic goods such as education, healthcare, housing that make for an unequal and unjust society. So, equality in terms of wealth or privilege or the benefit is not our cup of tea. That is not they are demanding. What they are asking is basic education, healthcare, housing. If you are not able to provide, then only the so-called unequal and unjust society emerges to a large extent. How come inequality happens and what are the area? Inequality may happen due to two reasons. Number one, social. Number two, natural. What is natural? Something what happens without any societal environment or society coming into picture. And social inequality is something what society has created as a great amount of hindrance for a person to proceed forward and do certain things. Therefore, natural and social inequality are two different types of inequality what we can witness in this area separately. Therefore, please understand a distinction has been made in political theory between natural and socially produced inequality. Social inequalities are those that emerge between people as a result of their different capability and talent. These kind of inequality are often differed from socially produced inequality, which emerge as a consequence of inequality of opportunity or exploitation of some group in a society by others. So without society involving, when people subject themselves to some inequality, when people are being subjected to a huge amount of inequality, and this inequality is something where it is happening naturally. It is not because of some outside interference, because of their ability, talent, caliber, when they are subjected to unequal way of presenting themselves. In a class you will find one fellow getting rank 1, many will be having the last rank, many will fail also. That is considered to be natural inequality. Social inequality is you are a Dalit, you should not do this. You are a woman, you should not do this. You are a minority, you should not do this. When people segregate them because of their background and condition, it is considered to be social inequality. So natural inequality considered to be the result of different characteristics and ability with which people are born. So it is based on the birth caliber, right? All of them are not same. 5 fingers are not same. Synonymously, all people are not same. Some are highly talented, some are less talented. So these are called as natural inequality. Social inequality is something which has been created by society. For example, based on race, color, gender, caste, etc. These and all society only will create. Society will come and tell, come on, you are subjected to this and you are subjected to that. They will create some differences. That is where we consider these as social inequality. For example, women are being always regarded as a weaker sex. When you continuously blame them as a weaker sex, by default, this type of inequality is being regarded as social inequality and nothing natural occurs in this area. Therefore, be specific in this topic. Now comes the core dimension, which is called as three-dimensional view of equality. In how many perspective equality can be separated and what are the different views we have in this area, which is called as equality. See, Supreme Court, High Court, any body for that matter is always striving to bring equality. Whether you are a wrongdoer or you are an innocent person, nothing matters. They will try to ensure equality. We have seen in case of India, wrongdoers going to jail irrespective of their background. Right or wrong, that is called as equality. You are a man of high caliber, you are a man of high political background, financial background, bureaucratic background. The moment you do mistake, you will be subjected to imprisonment. That is what is equality, and we have three equalities: political equality, social equality, economic equality. What these three are, let's see one by one to have a brief idea on this chapter. First is called as political equality. Simply speaking, in the political platform, we just want everyone to come and participate without having any amount of restriction. So, in a democratic society, political equality would normally include granting equal citizenship to all the members of a state. No discrimination. See, India hasn't seen that. That is the reason we don't know how citizenships are being given in other countries. In many countries, they don't even grant citizenship. They try to give some amount of citizenship rights to the local natives. Others are being discriminated. For example, you take America. In case of US, only a man who is born in America is eligible to contest for the post of President of India. If you are acquiring citizenship by way of registration or some other mode what American government permits, you are not eligible to contest for the post of President of America. In India, if you are a citizen, it is enough to contest for the post of President of India. You see how fundamentally differences are there. So these are the core areas where we come to a conclusion that these differences are bound to occur. Next one, in this particular chapter, please understand the so-called rights, political rights, what we call, these are the rights which are considered necessary to enable citizens to develop themselves and participate in the affairs of state, but they are legal right guaranteed by the constitution and the law of the land. And this in turn will promote something called as egalitarian society. That means society based on the principles of equality. No discrimination, nothing. All will be treated with the principle of equality. No amount of doubt in this perspective. When these things comes into picture, we have a grand opinion that India is able to proceed forward. India is able to achieve large amount of success only based on these parameters and nothing more than that. So these are a smallest tip to convey the message that Indian society is bound to have equality not only in words but also in spirit, in letter, in terms of the constitution. That is where we are able to proceed and tell that political equality in India is guaranteed. Sir, how can you confirm that? Last time the President of India is coming from the scheduled caste community. Right now the present president happens to be a woman coming from scheduled tribe community. This is what is called as political equality. We never say that according to Varna system, the top Varna alone can become the president. The top Varna alone can become the prime minister. No, nothing of that sort. Anybody is eligible to become the first citizen of this country, and that is where political equality comes into picture. Number 2, social equality, a very important term in terms of GS2 as well as in the prelims examination. Political equality or equality before the law is an important first step in pursuit of equality, but it is often needs to be supplemented by equality in terms of opportunity. While the former is necessary to remove legal hurdle which might exclude people from voice in government and deny them access to available social good, the pursuit of equality requires that people belonging to different group and community also have a fair and equal chance to compete for those goods and opportunity. So here social equality is very much required. India, you should know, it is being divided based on the Varna system. Varna system is based on fourfold difference, that is the Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. When these differences emerge, people are subjected to some or the other disadvantages. What a Brahmin is enjoying, a Shudra cannot enjoy. What a Kshatriya is enjoying, the Vaishya cannot do that. So this equality is required. Therefore, it is necessary to minimize the effect of social and economic inequality and guarantee certain minimum conditions of life in terms of healthcare, good education, adequate nourishment and minimum age among other things. These are required. Society, every one of them needs these things. Without these, it is impossible to even imagine the life also. So in this area, we are very much bothered to know how the aspects of society are functioning as such. So in India, we have a special problem regarding equal opportunity comes not just from lack of facility, but from some of the custom which may prevail in different parts of the country among different group. For example, women may not enjoy equal right of inheritance in some group, or there may be some prohibition regarding their taking part in certain kind of activity, or they may even be discouraged from obtaining higher education. I know many examples. In this chapter, you may think these are just words in NCERT. No, it has been reprinted for so many times. So they speak based on the advanced area. In this topic, the logic is that many a time what happens, this equality in case of family never happens. There are instances where women are being marginalized. Women cannot open their mouth also in terms of important decision what a family takes. This indicates a louder message that in India, even till today, the marginalization of the women happens to an unimagined extent, and this we are not able to stop it. That is a big problem in case of India. That is called as the inequality in terms of society which is missing. Last one, economic equality. Come on, a dream of everyone to achieve. Economic, the term itself says something dealing with earning capacity or the potentiality in terms of wealth, prosperity, happiness in terms of what is the social status they have in terms of their financial background, their bank balance, everything. In these area, we have a big amount of issue. Therefore, please understand, at the simplest level we can say economic inequality exists in society if there are significant difference in wealth, property or income between individuals as such. So wealth, property, income, when all of them are not being given equal access to empower them, then that is considered to be a biggest amount of hindrance. One way of measuring the degree of economic inequality is the society would be to measure the relative difference between the richest and the poorest group. Another way is to estimate the number of people who live below the poverty line. And we have one more debate also. Students, we can just go home and work on this area. Please try to arrive at what will be the ideal number for poverty in case of India. We all think poverty is something different. It is not true. How poverty is measured, any number what they give, 35 rupees, 47 rupees, 50 rupees, whatever they say, still we find some lacunae in the measures of poverty. To address all those things, we need to be very specific on how this poverty is being subjected to a big amount of debate and why we are not able to solve this for a largest extent. So inequalities which are entrenched, that is which remain untouched or even over a generation, are more dangerous for society. So society will feel highly difficult, and here until otherwise we reform these things, egalitarian society will be there only in paper and not in practice. Next, a very new term, feminism. So many will be aware of that, but just a small change in the perspective. We all think only female will be the feminist. It is not true. Please see this line. Feminism is a political doctrine for equal rights for women and men. Feminists are those men and women who believe that many of the inequalities we see in society between men and women are neither natural or necessarily can be altered so that both women and men can lead free and equal life. This is feminism. Therefore, do not have a wrong perception. We may think feminism from a different perspective, but reality is totally different. Feminism is someone who is not trying to bring some supremacy for the woman. Generally, someone who tries to bring some amount of equality between the sexes are called as feminists. So, according to feminists, inequality between men and women in society is result of patriarchy. So, what is patriarchy? Patriarchy is nothing but the supremacy, domination of male. They do in every perspective. So socially, economically, politically, culturally, in every domain, men try to have supremacy. And here, feminists question this way by thinking basic distinction between sex, that is biological difference between man and woman, and gender, which determines a different role that men and women play in a society. Even this can be a mains question or interview question. How do you differentiate between the sex and gender? So sex is biology, gender is sociology. For instance, biological fact that only women can become pregnant and bear children does not require that only women should take care the child after the birth. Feminists show us that much of inequality between men and women is produced by society and not by nature. Nature per se treats everyone equally. It is the society, the so-called place where people live, creates a huge amount of differences, and that difference is the main reason why in case of India, even till today, inequality prevails to a very large extent. Patriarchy produces a division of labor by which women are supposed to be responsible for private and domestic matter. Women should be staying within the four walls of the house. Men will take care of the outer world. This was what society is. And here, feminists contend that this public or private distinction and all forms of gender inequality can and should be eliminated. So gender inequality elimination is mandatory, otherwise there is no question. Now there are two perspectives on the word called as equality. One is Marxist perspective, other is liberalism perspective. These two things we need to understand. Therefore, according to Karl Marx, you should know what Karl Marx is. Karl Marx is a man who says that private property emergence is the major reason for the emergence of inequality. It can be in terms of like oil, land, forest, wealth, whatever it is. The moment private property comes into picture, inequality kickstarts to a large extent. And this happens to a very large area, and this we need to be very cautious as such. On the other hand, we are having one more view that is called as liberal theory. Liberal theory upholds the principle of competition as the most efficient and fair way of distributing and resources and rewarding in society. They believe that while states may have to intervene and to try to ensure a minimum standard of living and equal opportunity for all, this cannot be by itself bring equality and justice to society. So, liberal perspective says, come on, every one of them are having opportunity, every one of them are being given equality of opportunity. Let people flourish on their own choices. We shall not come and do anything because this competition is mandatory. The moment this competition exists, we are able to have a great amount of prosperity. By keeping these things in mind, they are able to come to a grand solution that some types of inequality are required. For liberal, the principle of competition is the most just and efficient way of selecting the candidate for jobs or admission or for educational institution for that matter. Even liberal view is what UPSC view is also. Liberals, how they think on equality, the same thing is being perceived by these members. Next we have socialism. So here everything is being considered to be government responsibility. So according to the principle of socialism, they try to ensure that government tries to do some regulation. Advocates of socialism are not entirely opposed to market. They favor some type of government regulation, planning, control over which certain key areas such as education and healthcare is being guaranteed. So in this perspective, we have a louder message that the aspects of the so-called socialism needs to bring the government into limelight and they will do the needful to promote the aspects of equality. And now, how to bring equality? And for that, the first step, yes, the first step to bring equality is trying to end the inequality. Social, economic and political inequality all over the world have been protected by customs and legal system that prohibited some sections of society from enjoying certain kind of opportunity and reward. Many a time this has happened. Many people were being denied the right. Many were not given the right to vote also. This is considered to be a big amount of headache for the so-called section. Therefore, first thing, all these inequality needs to be completely curtailed. Then number 2, attainment of equality requires all restrictions of privileges to come to an grand end, and these type of discrimination is not only getting an end in word but also in the Constitution of India, which doesn't permit this discrimination. Sir, what is that, sir? It is nothing but Article 15. Prohibition of discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex and place of birth only. On these ground, we have a right not to get discriminated. If at all somebody discriminates us in these area, we have a legal remedy to go to the courts and get our right guaranteed. Equality through differential treatment. See, sometimes speaking, we need to promote certain classes, certain section, and for that we have a term called as affirmative action. Affirmative action is we need to eliminate the inequality that are deeply rooted, and for that some measures we need to take, and these are called as affirmative action. Simply speaking, these steps are being taken to ensure that the weaker sections are being given some amount of happiness, some amount of comfort which they weren't getting for a long time, and these things are very much required. And number 2, when we give the reservation to weaker section, it is called as positive discrimination. We are discriminating them, but not negatively, but positively. For example, giving reservation to women in case of local body. Local body reservation to women is a positive discrimination. It is being done to ensure that we are having a largest amount of prosperity. Now, to reconfirm the message, we can just go ahead and subject our topic to other area which says that by reflecting the issue of equality, a distinction must also be made between treating everyone in an identical manner and treating everyone as equal. Identical manner and treating everyone as equal. For example, differential treatment in all cases, such as primary consideration to promote equality, and special treatment for weaker section, for those who are minority, and these are required, otherwise the people who are weaker section can never uplift themselves. So differential treatment is intended and justified only as a means to promote a just and egalitarian society. That is why they say reservations are required. If you do not give reservation, how come these people will empower? Only to correct the historical mistakes, these are being taken into account, and with this the so-called chapter of equality comes to a granted. And now let's begin with our next chapter as such, which is called as the chapter on social justice. That's again an important area as such. We will see what is this social justice and why do we speak on this area. So social justice is something we need to guarantee. Otherwise, government will be seen only as a failure institution. That is why we have something called as social justice. Now, we'll just start with why the social justice is there and what are the area. See, when I cover each and every chapter, you too try to go by the same perspective so that you have a great amount of comfort zone to proceed for the reading and completing the content. By tomorrow, we'll finish off all the books. Once we are done with all the books, then we can start other areas for preparation. Just to travel along with us, then you will see a good amount of miracle score in the exams. Yes. So before this, I'll just give you an information. So please take it. The batches, we are having the last date as 30th June. So we are having 25% flat discount in Sriram's IAS Academy. All classes, live classes, end-to-end preparation and planned structure, that is a structured course which is required to clear the exam is available, and you can contact the academy and they will assist you in terms of how to get enrolled and get the discount and proceed for the preparation, right? Okay. Now to begin with the aspects of justice. So what is justice? Why we need justice? So for that, please understand, in terms of ancient Indian society, justice is associated with dharma, and maintaining dharma is a social order, and it was considered the primary duty of king or any ruling class. Ruling class was subjected to this duty where they have to preserve the justice. Whatever may happen, justice needs to be preserved. On the other hand, in China, the Confucius, the famous philosopher, argued that king should maintain justice by punishing wrongdoer and rewarding the virtuous. So those who are virtuous and those who are wrong, both of them needs to be given appropriate types of reward. Those who are virtuous should be given a positive reward. Those who are wrongdoer should be given a punishment. And even we speak about the person called as Plato. He is writing a book called as Republic. In that also he speaks about justice. Through a long dialogue between Socrates and his young friends Glaucon and Adimantus, Plato examined why should we concern about justice. The young people asked Socrates why we should be just. They observed that people who are unjust seem to be much better off than those who are just. Those who twisted rules to serve their interests, avoid paying taxes, and were willing to lie and deceitful were often more successful than those who are truthful and just. If one was smart enough to avoid being caught, then it would be seen unjust is better than just. You may have heard people expressing similar sentiment even today. This statement even I have heard from many people. Those who are wrong will enjoy their life without having any amount of accountability, any moral responsibility. Therefore, we have a question, why we need to be so correct when every one of them are doing something wrong and leading a happy life? Why I need to be a disciplined person? For that, we have an answer. Socrates reminds these young people that if everyone were to be unjust, if everyone manipulated the rules to suit their own interest, no one could be sure of benefiting from injustice. Now, only few people are doing, therefore you are getting benefited. When whole society goes wrong, the so-called unjust people will never have any amount of happiness. Nobody would be secure, and this was likely to harm all of them. Hence, it is in our own long-term interest to obey the law and be just. Socrates further clarified that we need to understand clearly what justice means in order to figure out why it is important. And he explained that justice does not only mean doing good to our friends and harm our enemy or pursuing our own interests. Justice involves the well-being of all people. This is the core definition what we have. Justice involves the well-being of all people. That is what we need to ensure. The idea of justice involves giving each person his due continues to be an important part of our present day understanding of justice. So generally speaking, justice is more bothered about trying to understand what is due to a person. And here we are again going by Immanuel Kant. So Immanuel Kant is German philosopher. He even established a laboratory to understand how human beings behave. If all persons are granted dignity, then what is due to each of them is that they will have the opportunity to develop their talent and pursue their chosen goals. Justice requires that we give due and equal consideration to all individuals. Every one of them needs certain things. We cannot stop that, and this importance, if you are able to understand, that is called as justice. Now next one, equal treatment for equal. Some of the important things which are granted in most liberal democracy today include civil rights such as right of life, liberty, property, political right like right to vote, which enable people to participate in political process, and certain social rights which could include the right to enjoy equal opportunity with other members of the society. So generally these rights are primordial. These rights are quintessential. Without these rights we can't succeed. Apart from equal right, the principle of treating equals equally would require the people should not be discriminated against on the grounds of class, race, gender and other things. So these if you avoid, then definitely speaking justice can be as such ensured. And here we have a term called as proportionate justice. Most people would agree that although people should get the same reward for the same work, it would be fair and just to reward different kind of work differently. If we take into account factors such as the effort, skill and possible danger involved in that work. A person in the army working in Siachen Glacier are being paid more than the civilians working in a happy zone, not in the hard zone. In that area, because of the particular land going on, there is a great possibility that we are able to proceed in that perspective. We are able to understand that the issue relating to proportionate justice is that some people are rewarded more, some people are rewarded less, and this type of justice what people are getting based on their ability is something acceptable by the common crowd. For justice in society, the principle of equal treatment needs to be balanced with the principle of proportionality. You pay me according to my ability so that I feel the comfort. So when you pay me according to my comfort, that is where the happiness lies. One should not be largely discriminated based on the work. If people are being paid, then that is considered to be proportionate equality. And recognition of special need. This would be considered the way of promoting social justice in terms of their basic status and rights as members of society. Discrimination but even like the society may require the people to be treated equally, but even non-discrimination between people and rewarding them proportionally to their effort might not be enough to ensure that people enjoy equality in other aspects of lives in society, not that the society as a whole. The principle of taking account of special needs of people does not necessarily contradict the principle of equal treatment so much as extend it, because the principle of treating equally could imply that people who are not equal in certain important respects could be treated differently. So some type of differential treatment at some perspectives, at some parameters are acceptable. It is not that every time we come and claim equality, and that is not is considered to be justice as per the definition. Constitution therefore allows reservation of government jobs and quota for the educational institution for SC and ST. This is considered to be justice, and this justice is really getting benefited. See, our discussion of different principles of justice indicates that government might sometimes find it difficult to harmonize the three principles: equal treatment for equal, recognition of different effort and skill by determining rewards and burden, and provision of minimum standard of living and equal opportunity to the needy. All these things are definitely speaking a very tough task for the government. It is not that so easy, and here different groups in the country might favor different policies upon the principle of justice. It then becomes a function of government to harmonize the different people to promote a just society. So it's not that so easy task. It requires a great amount of effort. That is the reason we keep on insisting the message that equality is not that so easily a possible solution. And next one, just distribution. How to go for that? How to make equality? Social justice also concerns the just distribution of goods and service, whether it is between the nation, between the group, or individual within a society. If there is serious economic or social inequality in a society, it might become necessary to try and redistribute some of the important resource of society to provide something like a level playing field for citizens. Something we need to do. In some area, we need to do certain activity in which it is promoting equality. That is the reason, for example, untouchability in the government, they have abolished via constitution. And here many government have taken large amount of measures only to end the menace which is called as unequal representation, unequal ways of doing things. Therefore, this unequal representation, unequal way of doing things are very common, and these can be subjected to control if government distributes resources to a large extent. John Rawls has argued that there could indeed be a rational justification for acknowledging the need to provide help to the least privileged member. So he is having his own theory to reconfirm the message that weaker section needs some amount of care from the government, without which they cannot survive. Now moving on to the next area, pursuing the social justice. The next important dimension in this chapter is this area. If in a society deep and persistent division exists between those who enjoy greater wealth and property and power which goes with such ownership and those who are excluded and deprived, we could say that social justice is lacking. So what do you mean by this? Simply speaking, distribution of resources, distribution of power. If there is a only concentration of power, the emergent solution in all society, that is considered to be an example of a society failing to provide social justice. If this is being subjected to a change, then we can consider something. Otherwise speaking, this cannot be subjected to acceptance. This is where we have the domain relating to social justice. Please be very careful in this area. And now moving on to the free market vis-a-vis state intervention. How to provide justice? So supporters of free market say that, come on, let people come, flourish, enter into market, make money, and this is what is required. But here, free market, what they say, will not give any amount of opportunity for the weaker section. For example, when you find the hospitals in urban, rural area, in rural, the hospitals will be less in number than the urban, because urban is profit making, rural is not like that. Therefore, not all free market supporters today would support absolutely unregulated market. Many would now be willing to accept certain restriction. For instance, state could step in to ensure a basic minimum standard of living to all people so that they are able to compete on equal terms. They are able to compete on equal terms, and this is what we have. Therefore, the market is said does not care about caste or religion of the person. It does not see whether you are man or woman. It is neutral and concerned with the talent and the skill that you are having. If you have merit, then nothing else matters. If you are subjected to talent, if you are having meritocracy, you will be celebrated, and that is what is considered to be the real aspect of the intervention or the justice what we are aiming for. On the other hand, the basic goods and service, what is important is the availability of good quality of goods and service at cost people can afford. When you allow it to private, no, they will not do it. Private is always profit making. Therefore, some state intervention is definitely required, failing which justice cannot be ensured. That's what J.S. Mill says, John Stuart Mill. Justice implies something which is not only right to do and wrong not to do, but which some individual person can claim from us as his moral right. So he should not be subjected to the thinking he is right, he is wrong and all. When a person is entitled to do something, he should be given that right. If that is being denied, then society has failed to ensure justice to a large extent. Now moving on to the next area. Right. Next task will be a beautiful thing. Every one of us speak, you, me, everyone will speak on this perspective only. When somebody says anything, no, we will be having this as a first word. Hey, it is my right, man. How you can come and take all these things? Today everything is a right. When you sleep, you are not supposed to get disturbed. You should know this. When you are having a good sleep, today right to sleep is a fundamental right. I think you are aware of this area. For instance, the right to sleep, what I'm conveying in this chapter, there was a protest by a man who is called as Baba Ramdev, and this protest took place in Janta Mandir. At that time, like, he was sleeping, and in the middle of the night, police arrested him. And even before that, in state of Bihar, an incident happened where a man was arrested during the night time. Police says that until otherwise he is involved in heinous crime, one should not be disturbed in terms of his sleep. For right to life to be meaningful, a proper sleep is warranted. Therefore, right to sleep itself is now seen as a part of Article 21, right to life and personal liberty. So rights are very much required. Without rights, nothing is there. Today we are able to enjoy democracy only because we have the ability to tell that we are leading a life filled with rights. Without rights, without any of the guaranteed rights, life will become mechanical. Therefore, rights are very much required. Let's see how it is being mentioned in this area. First thing, what is the right? Right is considered to be an entitlement or a justified claim. It denotes what we are entitled to as citizen, as individual, and as human being. Very simple. As a citizen, as an individual person, as a human being, what and all I am having. And this is considered to be right. Therefore, there is a distinction between what I want, what I am entitled to. See, what I want, human wants are unlimited. That's what economics says. But means are limited. We like to buy everything, whatever we see. If you go to a mall, we love everything to buy. That is not the aspect of right. Right is always something what I am eligible for. We cannot claim absolute right. When Prime Minister is going with Z plus category security, we can't ask, I only gave the vote for him. No, so I also need the same thing. That is not your right. You need to know what is the Lakshman Rekha within which your right is operating. So rights are primarily claim that I along with other regard to be necessary for leading a decent life. For leading a decent life, not a life just like that, leading in a mechanical perspective. If I am leading a life which is a decent life, then in that perspective, what I am supposed to do, where I am being entitled, what I am not supposed to do, that is considered to be right as such. Please understand. On the other area, rights such as the right to livelihood, freedom of expression would be important for all human beings who live in society, and they are described as universal in nature. So human beings are bound to have these things, and until otherwise we get these area, it's very tough to imagine the aspects of how life moves on. So right is considered to be the primordial requirement to lead a life of dignity. Where do rights come from? So we need to understand the history. So in many area, historical input in the exam is very much required. In first thing, political theories argue that rights are given to us by nature or God. The rights of men were derived by the natural law. This means that rights were not conferred by a ruler or society, rather they were born with them. So whenever a man is born, he is entitled with all right, and he is being subjected to a great amount of right, that is right to life, right to liberty, right to property, and these things can never be taken off. And here we have another opinion that the term human right is being used more often than natural right. This is because the idea of there being a natural law or a set of norms that are laid down for us by nature or God appears unacceptable. Rights are increasingly seen as a guarantee that human beings themselves seek or arrive at in order to lead a minimally good life. So minimally good life is required, and for that we are bound to have some rights, and those are called as the so-called human rights. When they use the word natural rights, no, people don't accept it. Come on, naturally what is there, man? How you are superior and why I am inferior? But when we speak on the aspect of human rights, it becomes universal, and all of them are bound to have this human rights to a large extent. The assumption behind human right is that all persons are eligible to this right, and you don't have any amount of discrimination. You need to treat everyone equal. Each of us possesses an intrinsic value, rich or poor, same value. And here, even in the previous day class NCERT, I told you, when a man will throw the money upon a person who is doing the shoe polishing, he says, you give the money in hand. My job requires some amount of respect and decency. You can't throw money at me. This is what he will say. Therefore, this idea is very much warranted. And to fulfill this, UN declaration was signed on human right to understand the aspect of rights, and the world has accepted this declaration where the particular right whatever we follow will ensure that our life is subjected to dignity and self-respect to a largest extent. On the other hand, we also have the legal rights and the state. So here from where we are getting the fundamental right. You all know in the Constitution of India we are having something called as fundamental right mentioned in the part 3 of the Constitution, and for this the right as such emerged based on Magna Carta. So in the year 1215 King John he gave something in writing to the people in a piece of cloth which is called as list of right, which got as such embodiment or which got as such an inspiration, and here the list of rights were given to the people. Therefore our fundamental rights is also called as Magna Carta of India. Therefore Constitution represents the highest law of the land, and so Constitution recognition of certain rights gives them a primary importance. In our country we call them fundamental right. Other laws and policies are supposed to respect the rights granted in Constitution. The rights mentioned in the Constitution would be those which are considered of basic importance. In some cases these may be supplemented by claim which gain importance because of the particular history and customs of a country. That's what they mention about abolition of untouchability. It's a serious thing. India has witnessed these things, and many people have suffered the wrath of untouchability. Therefore, we are making the right for these people in such a perspective that the rights are being rightly made to correct the historical wrong what was done earlier. Different group may open school, fund scholarship so that children of all classes can get the benefit of education. But the primary responsibility rests upon the state. It is the state that must initiate necessary step to ensure that my right of education is getting fulfilled. So state is the anchor. It is the tool which is guaranteeing the right as such. The right what is getting guaranteed, the state should take the moral responsibility. Until otherwise that responsibility steps in, it's too tough to implement the aspect of right. Right becomes a real thing only when there is a governmental intervention. In other words, the rights are considered to be the obligation upon the state to act in certain way. This was the prelims question as such. How do you define the term rights? There are obligations upon the state to act in certain way. Yes, when I have a right, the state is supposed to do certain things in certain way. The state cannot behave in the way what they like. They have to behave in the way what we need. Otherwise speaking, we can file a case against them. So this indicates that state is bound to behave in a way, and the state must refrain from doing things which are not lawful. And when there is something wrong, the state has to take steps to do a proper remedy for it. When I have not done anything wrong, you see, the state simply cannot arrest me at its own will. If it wishes to put me behind bar, it must defend the action. If it is not doing, then we have a right to go and get our arrest cancelled from judiciary. And here the rights are there. For example, collectively civil liberty and political rights form the basis of democratic system. So civil liberty, the question of doing things in a society, civil rights. I have a right to marry any person after fulfilling the legal age. I have a right to buy property using my legal money. All these civil rights, nobody can come and ask a question. On the other hand, I also have a political right to contest for any seat as long as I am not debarred from election. So this is considered to be the prime pillar upon which democracy is having its presence. Now, today, in addition to political and economic right, more and more democracies are recognizing the cultural claim of their citizen. The right to have primary education in one mother tongue, the right to establish institutions for teaching one language and culture are recognized as being necessary for leading a good life. These and all, now they don't claim it as a matter of, sir, please allow us. They don't beg. They say it is our right and we need these things, whatever may happen. Rights and responsibility. So please understand, rights not only place obligation on the state to act in certain way, but to ensure sustainable development, but they also place obligation upon each of us. We need to do things. Until otherwise we do, then right cannot be properly demanded by us. When state is doing something, you are also having a duty to obey and work in such a perspective that your so-called obligation, if you are fulfilling, then only you have a right to question the state when your rights are being violated. So it is mutual win-win. Only when you do something, state will give something. When state is giving something, you need to fulfill certain amount of things, otherwise it is not possible. Secondly, they require the rights of others. If I say I must be given the right to express my view, I must also grant the same right to others. If you say no, listen only what I am saying, I will not give the element of thinking power to you, then what you are doing is considered to be an act of undemocratic behavior. And number 3, we must balance our rights when they come into conflict. For instance, my right to freedom of expression allows me to take picture. However, if I take picture of a person bathing in the house without his consent and post them on the internet, that will be a violation of right to privacy. Yes or no? All rights are not absolute right. Absolute right means when they say right to speak, you can speak anything. That is called as absolute right. In Indian Constitution, most of the articles are not absolute right except abolition of untouchability and abolition of child labor. These are absolute. Nobody are entitled to practice these things. Otherwise, all other fundamental rights in the Indian Constitution are bound to have certain amount of restriction. Next one, citizen must be vigilant about the limitation which may be placed in their right in terms of national security, other things. During COVID, they said don't go out. You can't claim I have a right to go out. No, you should be aware that there is something called as a spread of a pandemic. Therefore, you need to be more cautious on that area. Government can become authoritarian and undermine the very reason for which government exists, namely the well-being of member of state. Hence, even through right can never be absolute. We need to be vigilant in protecting our right and those of others, for they form the basis of a democratic society. As long as you are unaware, nobody can save you. You need to be aware regarding your right. That is why December 10, 1948, the General Assembly of UN adopted and proclaimed UN Declaration of Human Rights, and we have a preamble for that mentioned in this area. Just have a look on that topic. Yes. So just a reminder again for the aspect of Sriram IAS, the batches are having the last date tomorrow, 30th June 2023. So those who are interested, kindly contact the Academy, Sriram's IAS. They will do the needful, whatever is required. Okay. Now we'll just go to the next area. Citizenship, right? One of the most hot topic right now is citizenship, because many a time we find this area full of debate because we don't believe in the aspect of citizenship. And in case of India, when they went for the Citizenship Amendment Act, which was based on religion, not entirely, so some aspect of religion, they permitted the people to come to India from some countries like Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh. They didn't permit the Muslims to come from that country. It created uproar in the whole of India. The moment COVID virus came, these things people forgot. They went for saving their life and liberty. So keeping those things in mind, citizenship is considered to be one big domain where it is a matter of right. So citizenship is not just having Aadhaar card. And please understand, Aadhaar card is not a proof of citizenship. It is only a proof of residential status. Anybody who stays in India more than 182 days in a year will be called the resident of this country, not a citizen. Only when your name gets enrolled under the Citizenship Act 1955, you are being considered as a citizen of this nation. Otherwise, that cannot be as such tolerated. So please be specific in this area. Next, moving on to this chapter, we'll have a brief idea in this area as there are many new terms for us to understand. The importance of full membership of a state can be appreciated if you think of condition of thousands of people in the world who have the bad fortune to be forced to live as a refugee or illegal migrant because no state is willing to grant them membership. So, in a state when we are being given the right to stay permanently, a full membership, actually calling it is a blessing. Because when you go and ask a refugee, what is happening to you? Why to think of so many things? You ask our Rohingya Muslims. You ask the Tamil people coming from Sri Lanka via boat to Tamil Nadu. If you go and meet the camp where they are staying, you will know how wonderfully you are being placed here. You are being given right to vote, you are having civil right, you are having political right, you are having economic right, you have everything. But a refugee doesn't have these things to a large extent. So citizenship is again creating a great amount of pain in our mind. Now, citizenship is more than the aspect of, one second. Citizenship is more than relation between state and their member. It is also about citizen-citizen relation, involves obligation of citizen to each other and society. These would include not just legal obligation imposed by state, but also a moral obligation to participate, contribute for the shared life of the community. Citizens are also considered to be the inheritor and trustees of the culture and natural resources of the country. They are the one who are the true guardian. They are the one who have the fullest responsibility. So citizens are not just the people who are having the element of membership alone. It is not the mere membership status. It is something more than that. We are bound to have a large amount of activity which is being subjected to the citizenship rights which are being guaranteed in case of Indian Constitution. Now we are having something called as segregation law. So what is this? How this happened? You all know, for the welfare of the black people, there was a great crusader fighter who is called as Martin Luther King. 1950, they witnessed emergence of civil rights movement against the inequality, particularly between the Africans and the American. And this was called as a particular set of law was created to segregate people, otherwise labeled as segregation law. And these laws are considered to be the law which created the message that we are not treating the citizen and non-citizen equally. So that message got openly as such declared, and to fight against that only Martin Luther King and other people took a lot of steps. On this area, one of the rights granted to citizen in our country, in many other, is freedom of movement. This right is of particular importance for worker. Labor tends to migrate in search of job when opportunities are not available near their home. The moment you become citizen, you can travel within India, you can travel outside India. You will be given an Indian passport which says that you are a member of Republic of India. The first outer cover of the passport will have the term called as Republic of India. For this nation, you are a member. You can go and work anywhere. If anything happens to you, the embassy of India in that country will come to rescue you. These are the messages what we get to confirm the great amount of message that in case of citizenship, many rights are getting attached. The right to protest in aspect of freedom of expression guaranteed to citizens in our constitution, provided protest does not harm the life and property of others. Citizens are free to try to influence public opinion and government policy, and they can hold demonstration using the media and to appeal to political party or approach the court. The court may give decision based on the matter, or they may urge the government to address the issue. It may be a slow process, but varying degree of success are sometimes possible. So the very basic essence is citizens are always free. They have the liberty to do things what they want. These liberties are never getting subjected to condition. But here these can be subjected to acceptance, because as long as you are having a democratic method to fight, as long as you are having a large amount of democratic idea to accept, then your particular right is being subjected to a greatest amount of acceptance. The moment court finds a merit in your problem, even court will come in support of you. They will stop the government from making some policies or legislation which are not pro people. That is where the right is getting guaranteed. In this section, we will examine another aspect of citizenship, that is the issue of whether full and equal membership means that all citizens, rich or poor, should be guaranteed certain basic right such as a minimum standard of living by the state. You need to guarantee certain things, otherwise this is not possible. In this perspective, we are highly appreciating the norms of the government. The governmental norms is very simple. We are ready to accommodate people. We are willing to give them all the comforts and facilities, provided they have to obey certain rules of this nation. Once it is guaranteed, the state will ensure that some minimum standard of living is getting guaranteed to the members. Therefore, citizenship is not merely a legal concept. Very important area. Please have a focus. It is also closely related to the larger notion of equality and right. A widely accepted formulation of relationship was given by British sociologist T.H. Marshall. And here he says that citizenship is a status bestowed on those who are full members of a community. All who possess the status are equal with respect to the rights and duties with which the status is endowed. The key concept of Marshall's idea of citizenship is that of equality. That is, the quality of given rights and duty improves. Second, the quantity of people upon whom they are being bestowed. So, first is based on the quality of given right. Number two, for how many members you are giving these rights, and he divides the rights based on three: civil, political, and social. Civil rights are right to like individual life, liberty, property. Political rights is participating in the governance. Social rights is ensuring that we are getting equal access for education, employment, and other areas to lead a decent life. And these are considered to be the rights bestowed with citizenship according to Marshall. And now moving on to the next area in this topic, citizen and nation. How to codify these two things? So the concept of nation state evolved in modern period. One of the earliest assertions regarding sovereignty of nation state and democratic rights of citizens were made by revolutions in France. Nation state. The term is considered to be a modern term, and earlier for the word nation state we could find some shadow in case of the French Revolution. On the other hand, many modern states include people of different religion, language, and cultural tradition. But the national identity of a democratic state is supposed to provide citizens with a political identity that can be shared by all the members of state. Democratic states usually try to define their identity so that it is as inclusive as possible, that is, which allows all citizens to identify themselves as a part of the nation. So nation state doesn't create huge amount of discrimination, rather it permits some amount of equality, and this equality is again considered to be a biggest amount of modern day nation state phenomena. France, for instance, is a country which claims to be both secular and inclusive. It includes not only people of European origin but also citizens who originally came from other areas such as North Africa. That is where these rights are getting guaranteed. And here India is called as a secular democratic nation state. Therefore, we are having the secular democratic nation state. True partition of the country did take place in 1947 when differences with Muslim League could not be resolved, but this only strengthened to resolve the Indian national leaders to maintain the secular and inclusive character of Indian constitution which they were committed to build. This resolve was embodied in the constitution. The Indian constitution attempted to accommodate a very diverse society. To mention just a few diversity, it tried to provide full and equal citizenship to group as different as SC, ST. Many women who never had these rights earlier were being given this right. And Republic Day parade, what we are having in case of Delhi, is a symbol that all the rights, all the culture, all the region, religion are able to come and manifest their way of life which is getting accepted. So the provision of citizenship in constitution can be found in the part 2. So part 1, part 2, part 3, we are having all the parts to 25 parts. In that, part 2 will deal with the citizenship, and it says that one should not be discriminated while granting citizenship based on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. However, this particular discrimination can be made in the security and in the national interest to a largest extent. On the other hand, decisions regarding how many people can be absorbed as citizen in a country poses a difficult humanitarian and political problem for many states. Many countries have a policy of accepting those fleeing from persecution or war, but they may not want to accept unmanageable number of people or expose the country. So how many can be given citizenship? Many countries are also having some humanitarian ideas. They are willing to give the rights of citizenship. But just like that, if we throw open our rights to each and every person, that cannot be subjected to an accepted theory. On the other hand, now we have an idea called as global citizen. So the element of full and equal membership of a state remains important for the people today, but the concept of global citizenship reminds us that national citizenship might need to be supplemented by awareness that we live in an interconnected world, and that there is also a need for us to strengthen our link with people in different parts of the world so that we are able to move across the length and breadth of this country without any great amount of difficulty. That is what we aspire as such. And now we have another area which is called as nationalism, right? So the chapter in terms of nationalism, how it deals the domain to a large extent. The Republic Day parade, again, that is one area which shows the aspect of nationalism. The Republic Day parade in Delhi is a striking symbol of Indian nationalism, and it brings down the sense of power, strength, as well as diversity which many associate with the Indian nation. We try to follow these things and we do not have any other apprehensions on that particular day. We all feel that, come on, we belong to a very big nation called as India, and our views are getting highly appreciated and respected on this particular Republic Day parade. Now, the word nationalism is ending with the word ISM. Am I right? NATIONALISM. That is a spelling. Anything and everything ending with ism is called as ideology. What is ideology? State of mind that may be right or wrong. Ideology will differ. If you ask Marx, he will oppose capitalism. If you ask a person like Weber, he will support the bureaucracy. If you ask liberal, they will support the capitalism. So it is ideology. It will keep on differing from person to person. There is no great amount of uniformity in this area. Likewise, the language of nationalism is also used by some groups in India. Arab nationalism tries to unite the Arab country in a pan-Arab union, but there are separatist movements like Baskis and Kurd. They try to divide the state as such. We may agree that nationalism is a powerful force in the world even today, but it is more difficult to arrive at agreement regarding the definition of the term called as nationalism. So what is nationalism is not something a proper definition. We are having different interpretation. It keeps on changing from person to person. Now, what is nation and what is nationalism? Nation is not any casual collection of people. It is not just like that people come and stay together will be called as a nation. It is having some inner meaning also. In this area, please understand, a nation is not mere a casual collection. At the same time, the nation can be understood as something where the people will stay together despite differences in them. In a family, when we all stay together, we know each other. We are related by blood or by marriage or by adoption. But in case of the nation, the people will stay together, but they will not belong to the same family or will not have the blood relation. That is where nation comes. And nation will be having some common features like descent, language, religion or ethnicity. So nation will have these things as such. Now, how we can define nation? So nation is to a great extent an imagined community held together by collective belief, aspiration and imagination. So collective belief, collective aspiration, collective imagination, these three put together will be labeled as nation. First, a nation is constituted by the belief. It is only a belief system. You can't see nation at all. It is only a matter of belief. They are not like mountains and river which we can see. It needs to be felt. To speak of a people as a nation is not to make a comment about their physical character or behavior. Rather, it is to refer to the collective identity and vision for the future for a group which aspires to have independent political interference. So here the aspect of nation is this and nothing more than that. On the other hand, a nation exists when its members believe that they belong together. That is where nation will come into picture. You need to believe that we all belong to the same nation. So it is more about the belief what people have that will make a nation and nothing more than that. And number two, when people see themselves as a nation, also when people start seeing themselves as a nation, also embody a sense of continuing historical identity. In the past, they have a strongest belief that, come on, we all belong to the same historical thing. We have our records, our historical past, memories, everything is same. Therefore, we are united to a largest extent. This feel is required to have nation. And in case of the book given by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Discovery of India, Though outwardly there was a diversity and infinite variety among the people, everywhere there was that tremendous impress of oneness which held all of us together in the ages past, whatever political fate or misfortune has befallen us. Any adverse thing, whatever has happened, we all believed in one principle, that we belong to the particular nation called as India. That is the reason. How we made our independence a grand success. Now, what and all will have the nation? Number one, territory. So nation will definitely have a territory, a geographical location, and this will be identified with the river, mountain, regions, etc., which will definitely decodify and tell you belong to this nation. Then a nation will have a shared political ideal. They will be having certain amount of ideal which will never change and remain the same as such. Then a nation will bound to have the political identity, and they are here to ensure that the individuals as such are subjected to a great amount of unification in terms of shared cultural identity, or in terms of language, or in terms of common descent. In these area, the nation definitely requires the presence to a large extent. Next one, we have the heading national self-determination. Nation, unlike social group, seeks to to govern themselves and determine their future development. They seek, in other words, the right of self-determination. Simply speaking, they are asking for sovereignty. They don't want others to come and involve in our personal activity. We can take up our own activities, is what the element of this process says. Next one, the notion of one culture, one state began to gain acceptability at the time. Subsequently, the idea of one culture, one state was employed while reordering the state boundaries after the World War I. Now, additionally, indeed, most states have more than one ethnic and cultural community. These communities were often small in number and they were minority. Therefore, accommodating minority was a big problem. And here, only those who had a positive approach towards them, once they got mingled, the nation as such got strengthened to a large extent. And here, virtually every state in the world today face dilemma how to deal with the movement for self-determination, and this has raised the question about the right to national self-determination. Every one of us want liberty. Every one of us want their own rule. They don't want to be governed by outsiders as such. And here, once we abandon the idea of one culture, one state, it becomes necessary to consider ways by which different cultures and community can survive and flourish within a government. It is in pursuit of this goal that many democratic societies today have introduced measures or recognizing and protecting the minority. That is what we call pluralism. It is not one nation, one culture. Multiple things will come together. Then we can stay as such. Therefore, pluralism emerges. Language, culture, religion, all these things put together will promote the aspect of so-called nationalism to a very large extent as such. Now, in this area, the last thing is to sum up, the right to national self-determination was often understood to include the right to independent statehood or nationality. But not only would it be impossible to grant independent statehood for every group that sees itself as a distinct cultural group. Every one of them want a state. Every one of them want to make a nation, but it is practically impossible. Therefore, in democracy, the political identity of a citizen should encompass a different identity which people may have. It would be dangerous if intolerant and homogenizing forms of identity and nationalisms are allowed to develop. So sometimes pluralism is getting permitted to a largest extent. And now the last chapter for us to cover in case of the political perspective or in terms of the Indian polity is the content on secularism. So what is secularism? India is having a very proud celebrating aspect that we are a secular country. What is secularism? Indian secularism is based on the principle that we always have a great amount of respect for religion. Therefore, we go by secularism. Even our Supreme Court judgment in S.R. Bommai case has rightly said secularism is a part of basic structure doctrine. In this area, the Constitution declares that every citizen has a right to live a life with dignity. And here we cannot as such create some amount of disrespect upon the dignity what people live as such. Now, secularism is the first and foremost doctrine that opposes all forms of inter-religious domination. One religion dominating the other will never ever be permitted. Therefore, in this area, we can tell proudly that the aspect of secularism is based on this. And all people of different religion can accept and stay together. The religious denomination cannot be identified only with inter-religious domination. It takes another conspicuous form, namely intra-religion domination. As secularism is opposed to all form of institutional religious domination, it challenges not merely inter-religion but also intra-religion domination. We now possess a general idea of secularism. It is a normative doctrine which seeks to realize a secular society. Simply speaking, what does it mean? All of them are equal. No religion is supreme, no religion is inferior. If you believe in this, then obviously India is considered to be a good state promoting the aspects of secularism. One is, a state must not be run by head of a religion. A state must be governed by a person coming under election. Therefore, they are not willing theocratic states. That is a priestly class person coming and ruling. These are not being subjected to acceptance. And if that is the criteria, that will not be labeled as a state coming in this perspective. Therefore, this state is not what we need. Rather, we need a state based on the principles of equality. If we are truly secular, a state must not only refuse theocratic but also no formal legal alliance with any religion. You treat everyone equally. Don't discriminate. That is considered to be a true secular state, what we are aspiring for. How is the Western model of secularism? Simply speaking, in the West, there is a clear-cut distinction between the state and religion. State will not interfere in the religious aspect. Religion will not interfere in the state aspect. If somebody is being denied entry into a temple, they will not come and interfere in this activity. They will remain silent. They will never ever have any amount of question. And that is what is the model what we follow in the Western society. Western world is more about promoting the principle of a great amount of differences. No policy of state can have exclusive religious rationale. No religious classification. They will do things on their own and we can never go and ask any question. On the other hand, Indian model of secularism is very different. Here, though we imitate the Western secularism, our story is totally different. Indian secularism does not focus only on church-state separation, and the idea of inter-religious equality is crucial to Indian consumption. Within the religion, all religion are equal. We will not discriminate, and that is what is Indian model, what we follow. In Indian secularism took a distinct form where, generally speaking, it tried to focus on intra-religious and inter-religion domination. Indian secularism equally opposed to oppression of Dalit and women within Hinduism. So what they are promoting, even within a religion, within a particular caste or religion, you can't discriminate. In case of India, it is been subjected not only with the individual but also with community. Like the communities should not be discriminated. All should be subjected to a great amount of equal treatment. And this intra-religion, inter-religion is considered to be the cornerstone opinion of Indian democracy. Therefore, Indian state may engage with religion negatively to oppose religious tyranny. So if any religion tries to impose their value, we are completely against them, as we don't permit these things in case of India. It should be clear by now why the complexity of Indian secularism cannot be captured by the phrase equal respect for all religion. So it means peaceful coexistence of all religion or inter-religious toleration. Then this will not be enough, because secularism is much more peaceful coexistence or toleration. So just having the presence of all religion or tolerating other religion is not secularism. Secularism is the acceptance that all of them are equal. That should be subjected to the people's opinion. However, what are the negatives of Indian secularism? Number one, it is anti-religious. It doesn't permit any amount of religious dictation, therefore it is wrong. Number two, Indian secularism is being criticized as it is slightly imported from the Western model. Therefore, it may not suit the climate of India. And then there is a great opinion that secularism is not just an implant from the West on Indian soil. The fact is that secularism has both Western, non-Western origin. Therefore, our secularism is highly celebrated. On the other hand, the third accusation of secularism is that it is been subjected to minoritism. So, it is true that Indian secularism advocates minority rights. So, the question is this justified? So, here, how can you as such accept the aspect of minority? Minority rights, when you accept as such, it creates a great amount of commotion. Therefore, people don't believe in this. And then we have the question of interventionists. A fourth criticism claims that secularism is coercive, that it interferes excessively with religious freedom. Always interfering. This intervention approach is not something acceptable. Therefore, we see it as a negative perspective in terms of Indian secularism. And at last, we have the vote bank politics also creating a big problem in case of Indian secularism. Because secularism as such is trying to promote only the vote bank and nothing more than that. And there is an impossible project. The cynical criticism might be this: secularism cannot work because it tries to do too much to find a solution to an intractable problem. People with a deep religious differences will never stay comfortable. Therefore, just what they are aiming will not work out is the negative apprehension what they are dictating in this area. So sometimes secularism may sound to be logical but not true always, right? So based on these input, we'll just wind up for the day. We'll meet in the upcoming classes as such.